Hi guys, it's Fentony. This is going to be my Season 7 Episode 7 finale review, so if you've not seen the episode yet, I would avoid this video until you have, as it's going to be full of spoilers. So the title is The Dragon and the Wolf. It is the Season 7 finale, and it's the longest episode ever, coming out about 8 minutes long. Season 7 has been very fast paced, and that's been a huge complaint amongst the fans, and I was kind of worried going into this episode, especially after episode 6. That episode was hyped up so much and it fell pretty flat. Episode 7 is much better and so much happened in 8 minutes, but everything got the time it deserved. It was not rushed and some characters had their best scenes in this episode. Tyrion has been downright awful pretty much the entire season, and the only episode where I think he was actually any good was episode 5 Eastwatch, when he went to King's Landing and he met Jaime. But in episode 7 he took a central role again, and it was his best episode in a long time. Probably his best episode since he met Rhaegal and Viserion in season 6. The episode doesn't waste much time, and the Dragon Pit meeting has already been arranged, and the Unsullied are back from Castle Rock, and the Dothraki are there as well at the gates of King's Landing. So Cersei's taking no chances here, and the soldiers are actually preparing barrels of oil, and they've got 500, but after seeing Dany's army, Bronn thinks they need about 500 more. So Cersei's agreed to this meeting, but she does tell the Mountain to kill Daenerys, Tyrion, and then Jon Snow if anything happens. And this is where we got the first hint in this episode that Jaime's kinda disgusted by Cersei's actions, and that's a big part of this episode. The Dragon Pit is the location of the meeting, and it's actually where the Targaryens used to house their dragons. It's in ruins now, and chaining the dragons up is what caused them to become weak. And over time, the new dragons failed to live up to the great ones of the past. Balerion the Black Dread was massive, but the last dragon was no bigger than a cat. The Dragon Pit is where all the big characters are at. Brienne meeting the Hound and Jaime were some of my favourites, along with Pod and Tyrion, but perhaps the biggest one is the Hound and the Mountain. The Hound walks right up to his brother and notices his brother is like a zombie now. Clegane Bowl is teased big time, and we get my favourite line from the episode. "You know who's coming for you, brother. You've always known." The Dragon Pit's not the time for the big fights, but I'm 100% sure we're getting Clegane Bowl in season 8. So everyone's there except Daenerys, and Cersei's getting quite annoyed. Daenerys does arrive on Drogon, and yeah, it's a pretty epic scene and it showcases her dragons and their power to install fear, but it's always Drogon. Rhaegal was demoted to the background yet again, and this is really annoying me, as he never gets any screen time. Daenerys takes her seat and everyone's amazed, but Cersei's like, "We've been waiting here a long time," and then Daenerys says, "My apologies." So Tyrion is the first person to speak, but Euron Greyjoy interrupts him and demands Theon's surrender, as he still has Yara, and then Euron starts making dwarf jokes. He even says that in the Iron Islands, dwarfs are killed as babies. Cersei does make Euron sit down and we all get started. Any more interruptions? Jon Snow does his best to convince Cersei, but she's not buying it. She's never believed in White Walkers or anything beyond the wall. But the Hound brings the white out in a big box on his back, and it comes straight for Cersei. But luckily for her, the Hound has it by a chain. She's terrified by the sight of it, and then the Hound starts cutting it up to show the other people how it can and cannot be killed. Qyburn does take the hand, and you can only imagine the horrors he would do with it. Jon does burn the hand and then stabs the white with dragonglass, showing everyone how to kill the whites. And Euron Greyjoy asks the most important question: can they swim? The whites can't swim, so Euron does say he's going back to Pike, and he even suggests to Daenerys that she should leave too, and then when it's all over, they'll be the last ones alive. Euron's original plan was to marry Daenerys, and in this scene he was amazed by her and her dragons. So Euron's gone for now, and Cersei agrees to a truce if Jon Snow stays in the north and he stays out of the war. This is where Jon Snow messes up big time. He declares he's already bent the knee to Daenerys, so he can't sit out the war, and he can't serve two queens. So Cersei changes her mind and she leaves. But why couldn't Jon just lie? Even Tyrion asks him this. And Daenerys, who's happy that Jon is so loyal to her, she's not very happy that Jon's honour has caused Cersei to storm off, and she even says Viserion has died for nothing then. This is where all hope seems lost, but Tyrion decides to go see Cersei alone. Tyrion has been very poor this season, and I would say it's his worst season yet, but this scene is his best scene in a long time. So Tyrion puts his life on the line and he goes into Cersei's chamber. The Mountain could kill him at any time. Cersei does blame Tyrion for everything and trying to destroy their house. Remember, killing Tywin made the Lannisters pretty weak, and if he was still alive, you could say none of the stuff in season 5 and 6 might have happened, such as the Sand Snakes killing Marcella and the High Sparrow taking King's Landing. If you think about it though, Cersei has been in charge since Tywin's death, so it all happened under her rule, so really, she's not a really good ruler, is she? You can feel the tension in the scene, and both Lannisters hate each other. Tyrion admits to killing Tywin, and he hates himself for it, but he had to do it. It's very frowned upon killing some member of your family. It's called kinslaying. Cersei does blame Tyrion for Marcella and Tommen, but Tyrion does tell Cersei he loved both of them. All the bad blood and shouting causes Tyrion to drink the wine, and we know Tyrion has had problems with alcohol in the past. This is one of the best scenes in the episode, and that is saying a lot, and it's when Tyrion figures out that Cersei is pregnant. We know Cersei is very cruel, but she loves her children. We don't actually see what happens next, and we cut off to Daenerys and Jon. Daenerys explains that she can't have children, as Mirri Maz Duur placed a curse on her, but Jon Snow thinks the witch was probably lying, and that makes sense, doesn't it? It's kinda silly for Daenerys to believe her, but really Daenerys never got pregnant with Daario, so maybe that's backing it up a bit. But I think Daenerys is starting to figure out, maybe I can get pregnant, and House Targaryen won't die after I die, and I'm 99.9% sure this is all set up for Jon Snow and Daenerys having a child. So anyways, Tyrion's back, and he's not dead, and he's not on his own. Cersei's back too, and she agrees to help, and she has one of her best lines ever. And when the Great War is over, perhaps you'll remember I chose to help, with no promises or assurances from any of you. So about half the episode was spent building up or in the Dragon Pit, but we've still got a lot to go. We're going to Winterfell next, and you know how I feel about this storyline. Sansa's received a letter from Jon saying he's bent the knee to Daenerys, and she confides in Littlefinger, who warns her that Jon wants to marry Daenerys and Jon should be unnamed king. Littlefinger tries to twist Sansa by making her think that Arya has come back to Winterfell to kill her and take command for herself and become Lady of Winterfell. I was excited for Winterfell this season, but this scene has kinda summed up the entire season for it. It just doesn't make any sense, it's boring, and it always felt that the writing was kinda stalling out until the season finale. Why did it take so long for the Starks to make their move on Littlefinger? As we know, the Starks were actually working against him, and this is all just a load of rubbish. Arya, Sansa and Bran are actually working together. Did they need more evidence, or was it just waiting for the season finale? Oh, we can't kill Littlefinger till the end, it has to be the season finale. So Team Targaryen's back at Dragonstone and they're planning on heading north. Jorah wants Dany to fly up north in case any of the northern houses want to kill her for revenge. Okay. But she does agree to sail to White Harbour with Jon Snow so the people can see her and Jon together and that they're allies. This scene felt a bit out of place and forced. I feel that it was just setting up Jon Snow and Daenerys being on a boat together and for Dany to agree with Jon over Jorah. There has not been any setup of northern houses taking revenge against Daenerys until now. Now this is an amazing scene. Theon and Jon Snow. They were both outsiders at Winterfell growing up, and Jon Snow tried to be like Ned Stark, but Theon struggled. He always felt he could either be a Greyjoy or a Stark. Theon did betray House Stark when he invaded Winterfell, and he kinda betrayed the memory of Ned, but Jon Snow does forgive him for what he can forgive. And he does tell Theon, you're a Greyjoy, and you're a Stark. Theon has been so underused this season, and he's one of the best characters on the show. I feel if we had more episodes, we could have had more time with characters like Theon, or maybe if they were a bit longer. The finale was 80 minutes long, but remember episode 4 was only 50. That's a massive difference. Theon does have another big scene next when he confronts the Ironborn who are trying to leave and head east to find a nice island to take the gold and all the women. Remember Yara did outlaw that when she agreed to side with Daenerys. Theon does try to convince the Ironborn to help him get Yara back, but the leader of the Ironborn's like, you left Yara to die. Yara's dead no matter what. So there's a fight breaks out between that guy and Theon, and the bigger guy's obviously winning, but Theon won't give up. Punch after punch, Theon keeps getting back up. The Ironborn guy even knees him below the belt, but obviously that doesn't hurt Theon. So Theon gains the upper hand and he gets on top of the bigger man and starts pounding his face over and over. Theon has won and he's showing the Ironborn how tough he is and that he deserves to lead. But he does say, not for me, for Yara. These two Theon scenes were fantastic and it's such a shame that he's not been used enough. Season 7 needed more time on characters not called Jon Snow or Daenerys. So it's time for the big climax of Winterfell. Sansa calls Arya into the Great Hall. Arya and Sansa are actually working together with Bran to stop Littlefinger, but the way the show done it kinda felt strange. The payoff was great seeing Littlefinger beg for his life in the Great Hall, and then he gets killed by the Valyrian steel dagger that actually belonged to Littlefinger. but we never really got a good explanation about the Starks working together. Don't get me wrong, Littlefinger's death was a great scene, especially when he tries to worm his way out of it, and then command the Knights of the Vale to escort him back to the Eyrie, and then beg for his life to Sansa. He even says nobody in this room was there when he supposedly betrayed Ned, but Bran saw it, and he tells everyone exactly what happened. Littlefinger was a great character, especially in the first 4 seasons, but it's around about the time when he gave Sansa to the Boltons and admitted his plan on sitting on the Iron Throne to her, at the end of season 6, that he became a very weak character. I enjoyed the character, and he was the reason the whole Stark and Lannister feud happened, which led into the war, but his storyline kind of fell flat towards the end. I had high hopes for Winterfell this season, but I would say once the Arya and Sansa feud started, I didn't really care. So back to King's Landing, and finally Jaime's seeing sense. Jaime's preparing the Lannister forces to march north, but Cersei has no intention of helping. She lied, and she called Jaime the stupidest Lannister. She wants her enemies and the White Walkers to destroy each other. I loved how Cersei noticed that Viserion was missing and thinks something happened to him, which means the dragons are not invincible. And Cersei sent Euron east to Essos to recruit the Golden Company, and Jaime's disgusted. He is going to leave north, but the mountain stands in his way, and Cersei does say, "I told you no one walks away from me." But Jaime calls her bluff and tells Cersei, "Go on, make the mountain kill me." But just like she did with Tyrion, Cersei can't do it. Jaime then rides out of King's Landing, and he's changed his clothes, and he puts a glove on his golden hand, and then the snow starts to fall. Winter has finally reached King's Landing, and Jaime's heading north. The scenery was incredible, and I'm so happy that Jaime's left Cersei. It has taken a long time, and it's much longer than in the books, but it's finally happened. Season 8 Cersei is going to be very scary now, especially if anything happens to her unborn child, but I can't wait for Season 8, Jaime and Brienne. So back up to Winterfell, and it's time for the big reveal. Sam's arrived at Winterfell and he's visiting Bran. I love their dialogue, especially Sam's humour, but I feel that Bran's powers need to be explained a bit better. It does seem like he has limits on his powers, but it's not very well explained. He must have been watching the Dragon Pit scene as well, and he must have saw Cersei's plan to betray everybody. So Bran mentions Jon Snow being Rhaegar and Lyanna's bastard son, and he's called Jon Sand. But Sam says that he's transcribed the High Septon's journal that Gilly found in episode 5, which says Rhaegar annulled his marriage to Elia Martell, and he remarried in Dorne. So he's either took credit for what Gilly's found, or there's been a scene off screen. So Bran goes back in time and he witnesses Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark marry. And this is all happening whilst Jon Snow goes into Daenerys' chambers on the boat, and it's time for sexy, incest, dragon time. And then we go back to the Tower of Joy in season 6 and we learn Jon Snow's real name, which is Aegon Targaryen, which is a very popular name in the Targaryen dynasty. There's been 5 Aegon kings, and the first Aegon was obviously Aegon the Conqueror. Bran explains that Lyanna and Rhaegar were actually in love and Robert's rebellion was built on a lie, and that Jon Snow is actually the heir to the Iron Throne. This reveal could be very dangerous, and Tyrion's like standing outside the room, and he noticed that Jon Snow entered Dany's room, and it could be very dangerous as well. A lot of characters have died because of love, or made terrible mistakes, such as Robb Stark. Could Jon Snow and Dany's love cause a lot of problems? And what about the big reveal? Jon Snow is actually Aegon Targaryen, and he's the heir to the Iron Throne, which could cause a lot of problems between Jon and Dany, as he would technically be in front of her in the line of succession. But the Targaryens don't actually own the Iron Throne. Cersei has it. It's complicated. The final Winterfell scene was much better, with Sansa and Arya on the walls, and both of them acknowledge each other's differences and strengths. They even have a little joke where Arya says, "I believe that's the nicest thing you've ever said to me," and Sansa says, "Well, don't get used to it. You're still very strange and annoying." And then we get the quote from the second trailer by Sansa, which is from the book, A Game of Thrones, which is said by Ned Stark. "When the snow falls and the white winds blow, the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives." This was really touching, especially when Arya says, "I miss him," and Sansa says she does too. I really hope this is what we should expect from Season 8 Arya and Sansa. The fake tension in Season 7 felt forced, and it felt like they were just stalling and finding a way to get rid of Littlefinger. But now he's gone and the Starks are united. I hope Season 8 will be much better. The Littlefinger death and the final Stark scene were highlights this season, but apart from the reunions in episode 3 with Bran and Sansa, and then in episode 4 when you've got Arya coming back and then fighting Brienne, nothing else stood out for me. But we're not done with the episode yet. Bran actually wargs into a group of ravens and he heads to Eastwatch, where Tormund and Beric are. And after 7 seasons, the Night King and his army are finally at the wall. The The wall is meant to have special magic so the White Walkers can't cross, yet the White crossed in the last episode and he's in King's Landing. But the Night King has Viserion, and Viserion actually breathes a blue flame and destroys a large chunk of the wall. And we don't see what happens to Tormund and Beric, but I really hope they're okay. They can't kill off two great characters like that. The Army of the Dead marches through the wall and the Night King flies overhead on Viserion. I really enjoyed this episode and it felt more like a classic Game of Thrones episode and not so much a season 7 rushed one. I'm not going to compare it to past finales until I watch it a couple more times, but I feel those 6 episodes that came before it might have brought it down a peg or two. The Winterfell scenes were not the best, but Littlefinger's death and then the scene after it was a great scene. It's just a shame Winterfell has kind of been poor this season. Littlefinger was a great character, but he was ruined towards the end. There's going to be a lot of questions that need answered, and there'll be a lot of videos this week. I'm kinda glad that Season 7 is over, and we're kinda into the unknown now. Season 7 suffered a lot because of the leaks, but I really hope that Season 8 goes unspoiled, but I doubt it. So stick around for more videos coming this week explaining stuff, and if you have any requests, mention them in the comments below and I'll see what I can do. So what do you think about the episode? Was it the best for Season 7? I would say so. And what was your favourite moment in the entire episode? Was it Rhaegar and Lyanna? Was it the Dragon Pit scene? Was it Littlefinger's death? Or was it boat sex? Be sure to let me know. If you're just finding the channel for the first time, please hit that subscribe button, and if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like on it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.